Hey everyone, welcome back to Mess Videos. If you've got a question, we've got a solution. On today's episode, we are going to discuss on a few things that often goes unnoticed while going through the specification sheet of a vehicle brochure. By the end of today's episode, you will find it easier to make a decision on your new vehicle purchase. Have you ever wondered why would the term power, torque and the respective RPMs be mentioned in the specification sheets of your car brochure? Do we in fact know how well these things benefit us while driving the vehicle? I'm pretty sure that you have seen these specifics like the peak power is so many HP or bhp or kilowatts at so many RPMs. And the peak torque is shown as so many Newton meters or kilogram meters at so many RPMs, right? To get a better understanding on how these terms help us make a better purchase decision, let's first recollect the working process of the engine. In our early video, we have seen the components of an engine cylinder assembly and the working process, right? The crank converts the reciprocating motion of the piston into rotational motion to make the force useful to move the vehicle. The conversion of the reciprocating motion to rotation is achieved by the revolution of the crank, or in other words known as the crank motion. RPM is the number of these revolutions the crankshaft completes in a minute and is also known as the engine speed. Another important term that we need to know now is the mean effective pressure, or the MEP. MEP is the average cycle pressure acting on the top surface of the piston, which is also called as the crown of the piston. The pressure acting on the top surface of the piston is responsible for forcing the piston downwards during the power stroke, or in other words, the downforce. This downforce has the largest influence on the torque delivered by the engine. Power is the work output capability of an engine. Hence, peak power mentioned on the brochure is the maximum work output that can be extracted from the specified engine. Power is expressed in horsepower, brake horsepower, kilowatts, or Feder's torque. Here's a small relation of comparison between these units. The rated RPM shown on the brochure corresponding to the specified peak power is the engine speed at which these figures are attained. Torque denotes the twisting or the turning force delivered at the output of the crankshaft. Therefore, peak torque mentioned on the brochure is the maximum force that can be delivered by the engine. Torque is expressed in Newton meters or kilogram meters. Here's a small relation between these units. The rated RPM shown in the brochure corresponding to the specified peak torque is the engine speed at which these figures are attained. This means that the engine delivers the specified levels of force and work outputs at their corresponding rated RPMs only. Hence, lower the rated RPMs, the easier it is to utilize the power and torque. By now, you already would have noticed from the brochures that the peak power is at a higher RPM than the peak torque, right? A couple of situations will help us understand when and how the power and torque comes to its real-time requirement. Let's say you are in your daily routine, a hectic urban traffic where there are a lot of stop and start situations, or there can be a minor climb like a flyover or a basement to multi-storied parking. Your torque is what comes handy here. Getting a higher torque value at a lower RPM will help you get through the urban traffic easily, as it makes it easier to start off after a stop. Let us now consider that you are on the highway. Here, power or torque requirements are subjective. Let's see how. If you are cruising on the highway in your top gear and you are not going too fast, you are utilizing your torque. Also, if you need to overtake and that you are increasing your speed within your same gear, then too you are using your torque. But on the other hand, if you are quite at a higher speed, or even while overtaking, you have shifted down a gear or two, you are now utilizing your power in this situation. This is because in your lower engine RPMs, you are using the help of your torque. And in your higher engine RPMs, the power does the job for you. Suppose you are looking out for a pickup truck. Then your requirement naturally demands a higher torque. This is because the higher torque output from the engine of a pickup truck makes it capable of carrying more weight. If you are up to some crazy stuff like these, the higher torque put out from the engine of an SUV is what makes it capable of tough climbs and tricky terrains, as more torque gives the stronger push that is required in these situations. And now finally, if you're on a racetrack or that you want to buy some serious sporty vehicles, then the power is what comes into the picture, as you are in demand of higher speeds and better performance. But now you would be wondering that better acceleration comes from higher torque, right? Well, there are more factors to acceleration apart from just higher torque. For a sports car or on a race situation, your engine is always pushed to a higher RPM, and that's where the power band lies. The torque band lies on a lower RPM range. Also, there is another huge factor that comes into the picture called the power to weight ratio. Power to weight ratio is termed as the power available at your disposal against the weight of your vehicle and is represented in terms of bhp per ton or bhp per kilograms. The same applies to motorbikes as well. The kind of motorbike shown gives a clear idea as to where they belong better, and that tells you whether you need to go for more torque or power when you are on for a new purchase. So, based on all the situations of our driving requirements, the torque is more utilized than the power, unless your requirement is more specific. Hence, it would be wiser to give more focus on the torque figures, and please do check the rated RPM mentioned against it as well, as higher torque and lower the RPM makes it easier to drive in most of the situations that we usually drive on. Well, that wasn't such a big mess after all. Thank you for watching, folks. Please do like, share, comment, and do not forget to subscribe. Stay tuned for more mess.